Good morning. I will call to order the regular meeting of the Zoning and Planning Committee. Today is April 3rd, 2014. I'm Lisa Bender. I chair the committee, and I'm joined by Council Members Reich, Goodman, Johnson, Warsami, and Council President Johnson. We have two items today, both on the public hearing. The first is referred by the Council regarding an ordinance amending Title 21 of the Minneapolis Code of Ordinances relating to an interim ordinance to provide a moratorium on demolition, new construction, or establishment of single and two-family residential dwellings in Linden Hills, Fulton, Armitage, Kenny, and Lyndhurst. And then the second item is a moratorium waiver at the address 4205 Xerxes Avenue South. So we'll start with the first item today.
No.
Okay. We'll start. So I have 4 people signed in to speak today, and then after these folks are done, anyone is welcome to speak additionally. The first person is Tim Quigley. I'm not sure if I opened the public hearing, but I'll open the public hearing.
Thank you, Chair Bender, and honorable members of the committee for continuing this hearing from 2 weeks ago. I strongly urge you to rescind the moratorium and adopt a more nuanced strategy to deal with the construction hardships in Ward 13. These issues, which are real, can be most effectively dealt with via simple rules changes that have been proposed by a number of parties and by vigorous, vigilant enforcement of the rules that are currently in place by the inspectors in the field. In fact, I might suggest that it's the inspectors in the field where a lot of the problems actually lie. Only 2 neighborhoods, Fulton and Linden Hills, have significant issues in terms of teardown numbers. Lyndhurst had only 1 single teardown in the past year, and yet is erroneously included in this dragnet. As far as reconsidering zoning, please be careful. We've already done it once. I think that's enough. I don't think monster houses are going in anywhere in the city. We've already taken care of that issue. Allow architects and other professionals to be at the table, though, if you are going to reconsider zoning issues. Right now in the southwest neighborhoods, that's not the case. Architects haven't been invited to these workshops that are going on. Rather pointedly excluded, it seems to me. Southwest Minneapolis has a diverse look architecturally, and that should be fostered. It shouldn't be discouraged or quashed. As to the issue of ugly new construction, this may be self-serving, but perhaps insisting that houses be designed by architects is a better way to go. Currently, you may not know this, that's not the case. There are a lot of quote-unquote drafting services with quasi-skilled people drawing these houses up in many instances, and I think that might be one of the problems that you might want to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Valerie Maher, then Jonathan Mack and Sean Nelson.
Hi, my name is Valerie Maher. My address is 3824 Vincent Avenue South. I live in Ward 13 in Linden Hills. I would like to say I support the moratorium. I moved into a charming, historic neighborhood, and the basic fabric and character of the neighborhood is being rapidly transformed, not by the residents of the neighborhood, but by fly-by-night developers. They swoop into the neighborhood, they buy up and demolish lovely old homes, and make a quick buck, and then they swoop out. And they're making out like bandits at the expense of the people who live here. It's predatory. My neighborhood's under attack by swarms of developers who just want to rape and pillage our neighborhood for money. It's not right. Families, okay, so here's what I'm asking the city council to do. Please, when you tackle this problem, don't just consider building regulations and enforcement. Please also consider regulations that make it easier for families to buy homes instead of developers. Families shouldn't have to compete with corporations in order to buy a house. And corporations shouldn't be allowed to insert themselves as a middleman so that they can make a profit before you're allowed to buy a house. Also, second, please require all nearby neighbors to be notified well in advance when a teardown or a major remodel is happening in the neighborhood. And third, please make it easier for residents to get detailed information about what's being built in their neighborhood before the construction work begins. Detailed information about setbacks, height, square footage, building footprints, and loss of green spaces, not just the two-sentence description from the land use permit, but real information. I've heard the moratorium called a blunt instrument or overkill. I don't agree. Yes, it's a strong measure, but the situation in our neighborhood is dire, and we desperately need a strong measure to stop the irreparable damage. The moratorium does cause problems. I understand, of course it does. But the cost of lifting it is much worse. So I support keeping the moratorium in place for as long as it takes the City Council to properly consider the problem, even if it takes the full year of the moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jonathan Mack.
Good morning. New construction in an urban area necessarily means teardowns. So let's call this moratorium what it is, a ban on new construction. The problems associated with inconsiderate contractors and out-of-proportion homes are best dealt with by enforcement of codes and zoning laws, not heavy-handed moratoriums. The blunter the remedy, the more its use should be limited to those areas where it is absolutely necessary. We're dealing with a variety of areas. Ms. Palmisano reports that her emails run in favor of the moratorium, but I suspect her results are skewed in favor of the NIMBY minority and against the busy majority who are not attending meetings and shooting off emails. I also suspect the emails are not concentrated in places like Lyndhurst, where teardowns have not been a major issue. A grand total of 2 teardowns appear in Lyndhurst in the materials prepared by your staff. But what Lyndhurst does have is dozens and dozens of homes where 10 or 20 years ago, tasteful 1,500-foot additions were put on the back, not even visible from the front of houses. The owners of those homes never would have bought them if this type of moratorium was in place or even contemplated. The market would have been spooked. Yes, real estate markets are delicate things. They don't forget. Most homes in the 13th Ward have not made up the full 34% loss in value they had after 2006. And a presumptuous and precipitous moratorium is the last thing they need. The real estate market is a china shop, and this measure is a bull.
Sorry, thank you. Next is Sean Nelson. Then we just have a couple more people signed up. Julia Parento and Mark. Barb is next.
Madam Chair and committee members, thank you for your time today. My name is Sean Nelson. I live in Bloomington, and I'm the owner of a residential remodeling company called New Spaces. I also have the honor to serve as the 2014 president of the Builders Association of the Twin Cities, which represents over 1,000 builders and associated members and thousands of employees. At the outset of this moratorium, BATSI identified 2 objectives. 1, work with the city and other stakeholders to quickly resolve the immediate concerns of residents, and 2, to build the trust and partnership to work together to resolve outstanding issues and future issues. We believe that these objectives would allow the moratorium to be lifted, allowing residents to build, expand, and sell their homes and new families to move into the area. Our BATSI builders who build in this area responded immediately, and as did our staff and leadership, and we engaged with the city in a conversation. I'm very pleased to talk today a little bit about our progress. BATSI, through our partnership with the city, has worked on and agreed to a construction management agreement. Included in this are neighborhood notification provisions as well as other conditions related to the site and things like that to address the concerns that have been raised by area residents. We support its implementation and pledge to remain at the table as a stakeholder to continue to refine the document and address other related issues. BATSI will also be engaged in outreach and education efforts to ensure awareness and adoption of the construction management agreement amongst builders. We are proud to partner with city staff, other stakeholders, including realtors, architects, trades, and importantly, Councilmember Palmisano. Thank you all for the quick and positive work to get together to work on these agreements and hopefully get the moratorium lifted. We believe that the conditions now exist that allow for the lifting of the moratorium in a way that meets the needs of current and future residents of Minneapolis. Thank you again for your time.
Great, thank you. So then we have Julia and then Barb. And I'll just note that we will have staff respond to the testimony that we're hearing today, as well as the hearing from last time after folks are done speaking.
Hi, everybody. Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm Julia Parento. I'm the Government Affairs Director for the Minneapolis Area Association of Realtors. Sean pretty much said everything I had to say. We want to say thank you to Councilmember Palmisano, to the staff, to all of our industry partners, to you, the committee members, and the other council members who have worked so hard on this for the last 2 weeks. We feel very confident about the direction things are moving in, and we are excited about the partnership that we've formed. And that will continue to work to get wonderful things happening in the housing market and growth in Minneapolis. So with all of that, we just wanted to articulate our support of the agreement that's been formed, and we are committed, our resources and our time and our expertise going forward, and we will be here. And we ask that the committee, in light of all of this work that's been done, recommend that the full council lift the moratorium on April 11th, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we have Barb Perrin.
Hi, I am Barb Davis. I work at Coldwell Banker Burnett and Realty. I am a realtor with Coldwell Banker Burnett. I live at 1737 Irving Avenue South. I too am in full support of the accomplishments that have been made by so many people over the last 3 weeks to address an issue that is real and important, and I feel very strongly that we have stepped forward on a beginning point of being able to address the issues not only for the 4 areas but the entire city, in terms of being able to continue to grow in the ways that we want with the right involvement. And I do suggest that we vote down the moratorium and continue to work hard with all of the members that have been part of the conversation to improve our city and grow it the way we want.
Thank you. I don't think we have anyone else signed up to speak, but would anyone else like to speak before I close the public hearing? Okay, come on up.
Morning. Thank you for your attention.
Could you please say your name
Yes.
and address? Thank
My
you.
name is Judith Forbes. I live at 4640 DuPont Avenue South in the Lyndhurst neighborhood. My example that I'd like to share with you is not a tear down, but it's an expansion, and I believe it's one of many examples of expansions that have gotten out of hand. The house south of mine changed owners in December 2012, and in January 2013, a month later, demolition began and a new foundation was dug for an expansion to a house that was built in 1909. What had been a house that was 41 feet wide on my southern border became a structure 84 feet wide on my southern boundary. The size of this expansion is not my issue. There was a reason why the developer and the owner moved quickly. They dug a foundation despite it being the dead of winter. I was told later by city officials that the quicker construction is completed, the less likely the city is to enforce its zoning laws on such a structure. When I became aware of the intended expansion, I went with other neighbors downtown to look at the plans for 4648 DuPont Avenue South. I found that the plans showed not just an expansion of existing living quarters, but an entirely new separate living area, complete with its own mechanicals, gas furnace, gas fireplace, air conditioning, a living room, a bedroom, an office, a laundry, a bath, and a new full-sized second kitchen. The original development plans showed a second kitchen that would overlook my backyard from windows over a kitchen countertop with a kitchen sink, creating what seemed to me an obvious breach to a single-family zoning law that applied to this property and to mine. When I spoke to the owner, then to the builder, then to city employees downtown, it was suggested to me that this new second kitchen was merely a wet bar, and that the new separate gas line might not be for a new stove, but rather for a grill. I was assured repeatedly that if zoning laws were being broken, the city would enforce those laws. In fact, the printed plans in the city building department were eventually modified by a city official who crossed off the area showing a new separate kitchen and wrote in red marker, "No separate kitchen." The builder and the owner
Excuse
moved
me.
forward.
We've been using a 2-minute time limit. I know I didn't say that. If you could just wrap up and finish your comments, that would be great. Thank you.
Full-size appliances were delivered, and this new second kitchen exists today. Today, I live next to a duplex in a single-family zone area. I contacted Betsy Hodges' office. I went downtown repeatedly. Every city official I spoke to agreed that the expansion next door to me breaks the city zoning laws. Every official agreed it should not be allowed, but it exists today. And I believe if we're going to have zoning laws, we should enforce them.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Hi, my name is Dave Samsel. I live at 2722 West 47th. I want to thank Linnea for bringing this issue to everyone's attention. I think it is an important issue. I also think the moratorium is the wrong solution. The city should enforce its rules. If changes need to be made to those rules, make them and enforce those changes. This has been positioned in the press as a moneyed interest versus residents issue. And I just want to point out that I think that that's a gross mischaracterization. I've got a petition here signed by 1,200 people. They include freelance writers, seniors who are afraid they won't be able to sell their home, families whose development plans have been put on hold, neighbors, all in opposition to the moratorium. And I urge the committee to voice its opposition as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak before I close the hearing and have staff respond? Thanks.
Hello. I'm Nick Smaby. I'm a resident of Fulton, and I'm also president of Choice Wood Company, a design-build company that's done probably 200 projects in the 13th Ward. I want to speak to the concept of moratoria.
Sir, I'm reminded that we continued our public hearing, and since you spoke last time, we could let you speak just very briefly, please, today.
Oh, so have others here, but okay.
Thank you. Just try not to repeat what you said last time. Thank you.
Yeah. I've been to 3 neighborhood meetings, and I've heard complaints about how tear down projects come to pass. The criticisms are there's no communication, there's no consensus, there's no education, there's no warning, and the next day the builders show up with the heavy equipment and boom, it's done. I think there's a great parallel between that manner of doing business and how the moratorium itself was imposed upon us. I also think I've heard that there are problems with the dress code at Southwest High School. I would propose a moratorium. I'm being a little sarcastic here. Why don't you shut the school down while you fix the dress code? To me, the parallel is apt, and thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? And otherwise, I'll close the public hearing. Okay.
Hi, my name is Marlene Parks. I live at 4808 Drew Avenue South. Been a resident there for 26 years. My husband had purchased the home in 1980. Our block has not been quite hit as bad as so many others in Fulton and Linden Hills. I've had a house going up bits and starts since Election Day 2013 next door. It's gigantic. They don't even have the garage in yet. I'm not going to have any sun at all on my south side. I think the problem here is that the size of these homes are just too big for these lots. And I am so with this moratorium, you have no idea. The houses that they tore down to replace this, there was nothing wrong with it at all. And I'm not saying all the houses in these neighborhoods are good, but many have been great homes that are gone now. And these houses that were torn down, well within range of families buying, replaced with $800,000, $900,000 homes. So, and this moratorium doesn't have to go for a year. Everybody is showing that those wheels are turning so fast now, and the attention has been gotten that this can be resolved so quickly, it doesn't have to go for a full year. So please, please consider that, and please put the brakes on this, just even for a while, to get your, know what's going on here. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? All right, with that, I'll close the public hearing. And then we've heard a lot of testimony. We had, I think, 2 hours of testimony last time and then continued today. So just like to invite our CPED staff to come up and sort of talk about what's happened since the last time and respond to a lot of the comments that we've heard today and last time as well.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members, Councilmember Palmisano. I'm Doug Kress. I am the Director of Development Services, and I'm here to provide you with an update of the activity that has occurred since our last meeting. We'd like to emphasize that the concerns really are falling into 3 general categories that are a little overlapping, but we really kind of want to address these issues. One is the construction management and kind of site management of that construction site, the zoning standards, and also for new homes, but also the remodeling of homes, and also environmental sustainability. Are really categories that we've really looked at for this. Staff have been working to address the issues raised during the public hearing, both here that we've heard today, as well as in some of the community meetings that we've been attending throughout the neighborhoods. Throughout this process, we've been working to identify solutions that can be implemented quickly and to address the concerns raised by many of the neighbors and documents through the photographs that were presented during the council meeting and the presentation done by staff here. We're also looking for long-term solutions, which will modify, including the zoning code and other types of codes that may be presented as we move forward to support smart future growth of our city. Many of the short-term issues are focused, as I said, on the construction management. Working with many of the people that are sitting in this room, as well as Councilmember Palmisano, and across department areas, we have come up with a construction management agreement that was talked about briefly. You also have a copy of that sitting in front of you today. Just to identify that there are 25 different points within that construction management agreement, and I'm only going to highlight a couple just so the audience also has an opportunity to hear these, and there's copies sitting up at the dais. We'll be talking about construction hours and operation of hours that are allowed, or if they need to go outside of those hours, how to obtain permits. Contract construction management will also be included in this agreement. Neighborhood notification and information meetings will be held and requested. Site and surrounding management maintenance, protection of adjoining properties, and also a log made available to us that will be held by the contractor at the site to identify that. And finally, the increase of enforcement in the construction management, as well as current ordinances that are on the books that we are able to fine and hold the contractor accountable to. With this, as I said earlier, staff have worked across departments, including regulatory services, public works, and health, to eliminate the barriers to enforcement, which was one of the largest issues that we had found as we looked deeper into this issue. This includes items such as dumpsters, dumpster violations, street use permits, sidewalk obstructions, and this will then broaden our enforcement opportunities to move forward. The elimination of the silos of the responsibilities of enforcement and will also provide some guidance to adopt new policies across departments to enforcement and additional ordinance amendments that we talked about earlier. Finally, within development services, we're looking at our own budget to identify both short-term and long-term staffing options to implement the enforcement of the construction management agreement. To identify some of the long-term solutions, we've already begun with staff researching ordinance changes to support the smart infill and replacement of 1 to 4 housing. We will return to committee with additional recommendations regarding our 1 to 4 zoning process and planning, the zoning ordinances and planning process that we'll be going through. And I've asked Jason Wittenberg to review that timeline with you for just 1 minute as well. This is also allowing us to look at the zoning enforcement efforts in a broader term as well, again, eliminating some of those barriers within our departments so that we have a stronger sense of enforcement. Finally, we've been working with Smart Cities, our new IOP system, which we've been meeting with to really look at the data that we can collect, both from some of our partners that are in this room, including the Realtors Association, to identify trends, to help us identify where we can possibly put additional resources to move forward, again, to look at smart growth within the city of Minneapolis. With that, I'll leave it to Jason Wittenberg to review our timeline for our residential work that we're going to be doing on our zoning text amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Kress.
Thank you. Good morning, committee members. Doug has referenced the cross-department team that has been put together to address not only construction management issues, but the zoning ordinance issues that we're going to be taking a look at. We've started to lay the groundwork for those changes, and I know Councilmember Palmisano has convened focus groups that will also provide critical input. I believe one of those meetings has happened so far. We look forward to seeing the feedback from those focus groups, as well as engaging residents, architects, and builders. With that, we've laid out an extremely aggressive timeline to get zoning ordinance changes in place. Our intent is that ordinance changes could be adopted as early as July, so 3 months from now. We'll be not only meeting regularly with the cross-department team, but a smaller subset of CPED planners will be working more regularly to furiously pull together changes that won't necessarily be starting from scratch. We'll be building on what we have. I think last time I highlighted the major changes that were adopted in both 2005 and 2007. So our intent is not to blow all that up and start over, but to certainly have some important incremental change that continues to move us in the right direction on this. That's all I have, unless you have questions.
Great. Are there any questions for staff? I should note that we were joined by Councilmember Palmisano before the public hearing. Would you like to say anything?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Bender. I want to acknowledge and thank everybody for coming down to City Hall on both of these days. These are big changes that we're considering. They've taken place in very short order, and a lot of city staff and my colleagues would not be surprised if I were still sitting here in the same clothes as 2 weeks ago, because we've been running around so furiously. This has been a partnership with residents, developers, yes, architects, and many trade and professional groups. Furthermore, these are about people's homes, and these are residents that I represent. This construction is intense, and these conversations are uncomfortable because they're often so personal. The issue is serious, and what I am heartened by and was heartened by from the very start is that everybody agrees, almost everybody agrees, that these are big problems and they're not just temporary nuisances. So yes, the city does need to do work to better enforce, and we've been working on that, breaking down some of the silos between some of our different regulatory departments, and Mr. Kress has done a yeoman's effort in working to get those changes. Also, I've been working hard on scraping together resources and conversations around additional staff, because Councilmember Johnson, I want to assist development with this in your ward too. And Council President Johnson, I want this to foster more development in your ward. This is a citywide change, and this is not something that the 13th Ward should be suffering from, but rather leading the effort in. So that's, I think we can lead that effort. I think we have shown that we've been leading that effort in a few different ways here. This is something that reflects our values from Southwest Minneapolis, which are strongly about achieving a zero-waste city, strongly about, yes, investing in our housing stock, but doing so in an environmentally sensitive way, and one that sets us up for the future in the single-family home environment. So I've asked if Councilmember Reich would help me with a motion to that effect, and let me just give a brief overview of that, if you would. The first is to take this construction management agreement, which has been an enormous effort on 25 different topics. Again, there are copies of it on the city clerk's end table there, to put that into use right away, as soon as possible, and have that be effective for every project going forward. The second would be about committing to that staff direction on finding resources for increased staff, both from the enforcement side and also from the planning side. We want to foster this kind of development around the city. Also, we want to continue the study. If there's something residents have come out in droves to tell us about, it's about how important it is to continue that conversation. And the focus group that I was part of last Saturday was so wonderful to have people from professional trades in the table, and I see some of them here in the corner, but then also residents and everybody having a very productive dialogue about what those zoning changes could be. So with those things and with everybody staying at the table, I am comfortable with giving a very short end date to this ordinance, and I'll allow Councilmember Wright to make the motion if you would. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Just quickly, will the construction management agreement be available online? Mr. Board, do you know, or staff? Mr. Grass, there you are.
Yes, we will put this online available through our the CPED department, but we'll also have shared this with the communications department to also have that available.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Reich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll make the motion and make a brief comment if that's all right with you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, the motion is to direct staff to implement and enforce the use of construction management agreements for all unoccupied construction projects involving the wrecking, new build, and major remodeling of 1 and 2 unit dwelling structures. Direct staff to identify additional resources to meet staffing needs relating to the implementation of the oversight of construction management planning related to these activities, and refer the matter to the Ways and Means Committee for further consideration. Direct staff to continue to study the growth of construction of 1 and 4 unit dwellings for the purpose of informing future development, and to make recommendations on the zoning code of ordinances and planning processes based on the studies and findings. And I will just make my comment that the guiding principles that have been part of this conversation moving forward is to take input of all sides. I think the comments made by the associations, BATSI and the Realtors Association, say the partners are at the table to influence and sort of land the plane, if you will, in a way that works for everyone. Also to be expeditious. I think we're not here to go through an exercise just to go through an exercise or gratuitously put a block to development, but to move forward swiftly in a better manner than before. And then finally, one of the reasons my name is on this motion and making it is that this is the first steps for citywide policy. This is about citywide governance, and very much want to be a part of that as someone who's at the furthest removed geographically from the current activity, but keenly aware that it will impact how we all grow together. So I make that motion with these comments.
Thank you, Councilmember Reich. Are there any further comments from the committee or discussion? Councilmember Goodman.
Well, seeing no one else jumping up, I will jump in. First of all, I want to thank Doug Kress, as usual, for your amazing and fast work to try to bring everyone together and work on the staff component of it. I want to say to my colleague, Councilmember Palansamo, good for you. I think you actually found a way to do something about these problems that we have been facing. And to be honest, I'm offended that people get up and call the neighbors who have walls falling down on their homes, or their air conditioning units falling into holes, or they have to listen to the constant sound of a porta potty banging at 6 in the morning, or people working outside of work hours, or watching mud and sand drain into the storm system and watch all of this material be thrown into a landfill. Those are the NIMBYs, apparently, in this. And if those are the NIMBYs, I have lots of them in my ward, too, and I call them voters. And so from my point of view, this is the public, and the people who live there have the right to speak up about their point of view, and I'm glad they have. And I think we have a solution that is one that does not create a regulatory hammer, but does create a regulatory framework where we're going to do something about these problems. I live directly next door to a house that's going up. You would think that by a builder who is also the owner that I sold the land to, you would think that they would be following the letter of the law living next door to the council member. What I found out is some of the time they don't even know what the law is, and I can't, be out there telling them what the law is. And the truth of the matter is we don't have enough staff to be out there constantly watching what they're doing. And I personally don't want to be the zoning staff. And this is the most perfect of all situations where I owned the lot, I sold the lot, I picked the person who built it, and he is the owner builder. So there are problems even when you have the best of circumstances, and there are many, many good builders in town, like the gentleman who's building a home next to me, and there are many people who want to see homes built on lots directly next to them, including people like me. So I think that what we need to do is recognize there are some things the city simply cannot do. We cannot say, we don't like the way your house looks. We cannot say, we don't like what you're going to do with your house. If you want to sell your house as a demolition, I don't think we have the right to tell you you can't do that. But I do think there are things we can do. For example, we can say when you build your garage or your basement 6 or 8 feet out of the ground and call that a basement, that is not a basement. That's something we have to do something about. And I think there are ordinance changes where we can look at some of those things and make a difference. And this has happened in my own ward, and it caused a lot of controversy where someone built their basement at 8 feet up, and now the next door neighbor is looking into a concrete block wall. I think most people would think that's not a NIMBY issue. That is a quality of life and type design issue that I think we can do something about. All of the rest of the issues seem to focus around issues of enforcement, and I really think that that's the area where we need to focus the most. I think that the Ways and Means Committee and this council needs to be committed to funding this kind of enforcement, but even if we had 3 people out there, that would not be enough to stop people who want to not follow the rules anyway. So there are many good builders, and they're in this room, and I bet there's a lot of not good ones, and they're probably not here as part of the conversation, but we need to do something about that. I have to admit, I personally think that the people who are in the room are actually trying to solve the problem, and I commend you for doing that and stepping forward, but this is ultimately a compromise. Do I think that having a moratorium extend longer in order to solve these problems is needed? No, probably not, but are we going to be doing something to solve these problems? Yes, we are. And we need to. And if you're someone who wants to thumb your nose at the city and say that we're evil for enforcing our ordinances, there are other places to build, and you should consider that. So I commend you for the work that you've done. I think you're standing up for people who elected you as well as people who live in these neighborhoods. I do not second guess any council member's path to get to the outcome. We've come to a good outcome. That's what we need to focus on, and we need to now focus on funding it.
Thank you, Councilmember Goodman. Council President Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I too want to thank Councilmember Palmisano for bringing this forward and getting people to the table, because sometimes that's the sort of thing that actually helps you make progress and get people's attention. But I agree with Councilmember Goodman. I think probably the most pressing thing is us being able to monitor more closely the work sites and the thing that is within our most control. And so I was going to ask Mr. Kress how long he thinks it will take to come up with the complement of staff that you think you will need to particularly go forward. We've had a little time lag here that's going to produce some pressure in the summer construction and all that sort of thing. So I think I certainly don't want to wait until the budget process to be looking for staff. So do you think you can get that number to us fairly rapidly so we can get it on to Ways and Means?
Chair Bender, Council President Johnson, yes, we are working on that right now, and I have a meeting set up with our finance department to really look at this. We're also looking internally to see where we can find some budget savings in order to look at this particular thing internally.
Okay, so it should be quick.
Very quick.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the committee? Then I'll just add, I think that there's seen a lot of innovation here. The construction management agreement, I know, was written with builders hand in hand by our staff and Councilmember Palmisano, and I just thank everybody for your time on this and thank everybody who came to speak during the public hearing time and who are participating in the focus groups and their neighborhood organizations. This has been a really detailed and robust conversation. And so with that, we have a motion from Councilmember Reich and Palmisano. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? That motion carries. Thank you. So the second item on today's public hearing, before we finish with that, if anyone spoke but didn't sign in, could you please sign in with our clerk for that first public hearing? So the second public hearing is regarding a moratorium waiver, which I believe will no longer be needed, but I would ask staff to start with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Committee Chair, members of the committee. Item number 2 is a waiver request.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Pardon me, I just want to clarify the previous motion. Councilmember Reich?
Yeah, just to be clear, the motion also includes the move to cancel the interim ordinance amending Title 21, Minneapolis Code of Ordinances relating to the interim ordinance, adding a new Chapter 590, providing for a moratorium on the demolition, new construction, and establishment of single and two-family residential dwellings in the R1, R1A, R2, R2B zoning districts in the neighborhoods of Linden Hills, Fulton, Armitage, Kenny, and Lyndhurst, just for clarification.
Mr. Nielsen, should we take action on that separately?
Madam Chair, yes, you should definitely vote on that part of the
perfect.
motion. So we have
Pardon me, I
to
wasn't-
clarify, the motion was 2 parts. We had the staff direction, which is a 3-part staff direction, and then the motion that Councilmember Wright just referred to, which is to cancel the interim ordinance or the moratorium.
My apologies. Thank you, Mr. Nielsen. The second motion is to repeal the interim ordinance. Is there any discussion on that motion, Councilmember Johnson?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. All I want to say is it's just something related. We have some folks in the room that represent realtors and building associations, and all I have is one ask. Please talk with your clients about deconstructing these homes when it comes to demolition. Zero waste in our city, and recycling, reusing is a huge topic right now. You have an incredible opportunity to do that, and I just ask you, and I understand your clients are going to make their own decisions, and that's great, but please be promoting that option to them and talking with them about that, because it's just a great solution for our city and for our region as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. Anything else on that motion? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay. That motion carries. All right, staff on the second hearing item.
Thank you. Item number 2 is for the property located at 4205 Xerxes Avenue South. This is a waiver request of the moratorium to allow for the demolition of an existing single-family dwelling and the construction of a new single-family dwelling. The subject property is zoned R1, single-family district. The existing single-family dwelling was permitted for construction May 5th of 1927. The detached garage was added later that year in August. In 1968, there was a rear addition placed on the existing single-family dwelling, and in 1976, a foundation was later underpinned under that same addition. The subject property is presently vacant. The applicant is proposing to demolish the existing single-family dwelling, which is presently non-conforming to the north interior side yard setback. It's located 3 feet to the north setback. And that is in order to allow for the construction of a new single-family dwelling that meets the interior side yard setbacks of 6 feet on each side. The new single-family dwelling, as proposed, would have a tuck-under garage that's accessed via a shared access easement across the rear of the properties. As you'll see, this block does not have access to a public alley, but there's shared access for the parking for the properties here at 4201, 4205, 4209 Xerxes, and then also at 4206 Washburn. As proposed, the single-family dwelling will meet the administrative review points that are required. The minimum is 15, and 16 points have been awarded for the design. And this proposed dwelling will meet all of the required setbacks and not require any additional variances of the zoning ordinance. The subject property is within the Linden Hills neighborhood and is located within the moratorium area, which will be in effect at least until next week, until full vote before the City Council. The moratorium that is presently in effect does prohibit both the demolition and new construction, so that is the waiver request before you today to allow for both of those applications. Staff has received public comments from the Linden Hills Neighborhood Council, which we received this morning. We also received an email in support from an adjacent property owner. Copies of those documents are included in your materials today. In addition, staff has received some detailed comments from Public Works addressing concerns with the rear tuck-under garage. Some of those concerns include the potential for groundwater issues with the new tuck-under garage. This is within the potential groundwater conflict area that we've seen mapped a few times before this committee through the moratorium discussion. In addition, they have concerns with potential stormwater impacts to adjacent property owners with the regrading of the site, and then also potential erosion concerns as well. The applicant has submitted revised drawings to Public Works, and those are currently being reviewed. Staff is recommending approval of the requested waiver based on the following findings. So under finding 1, we split out the demolition and the new construction. So first, under the demolition. Staff finds that substantial hardship does exist in this case in prohibiting the demolition of the existing single-family dwelling due to the interim ordinance. The property has been vacant for 4 years. According to the appraiser's report, which is included in a packet, there are several structural issues to the existing dwelling. First, there are cracks in the foundation. Second, the existing single-family dwelling has sunk at the rear along the north side approximately 11 inches and on the south side of the dwelling approximately 16 inches, as well as having cracks in the building wall at the front elevation. The appraiser has identified that corrective measures will cost between $72,000 and $84,000. Therefore, staff finds in favor of granting the waiver application under finding 1. For the new construction, the applicant is proposing to replace the existing single-family dwelling that's presently non-conforming to the north interior side yard setback with a new house that will meet the required setback, allowing for that greater separation between dwellings. Additionally, the applicant has provided a hardship analysis each month, according to the applicant, that the property is not allowed to be constructed. It will cost approximately $2,800. If the moratorium were to be in effect for the full year, the range would be approximately $34,000 in cost lost. As proposed, the new single-family dwelling, as previously mentioned, will meet the minimum points required for administrative review and will not require any additional zoning variances. However, staff has received comments from Public Works, as we've previously noted. So staff finds that measures should be taken to amend the proposed plan to conform to the standards as required by Public Works. And staff finds that substantial hardship does exist in prohibiting the new construction in this case, where staff is supportive of the demolition of the existing single-family dwelling. We've heard a great deal of testimony of why the moratorium is in place, and so I won't go into the purpose of the moratorium, but just add that is in the background of the report and under finding 2, that the applicant has provided a construction management plan, which also was received by committee and is continuing to work with Public Works. Therefore, staff finds that the waiver will not unduly affect the integrity of the planning process or the purposes for which the interim ordinance was enacted. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of the requested waiver with 4 attached conditions of approval. First, that staff will review the final plans. Second, that the applicant will comply with the administrative site plan review, adhering to the minimum points required. The applicant will provide and adhere to a construction management plan, and then finally will continue to work with Public Works to ensure compliance. So with that, I can take any questions.
Thank you. Given the previous motion to lift the ordinance, is there any change to what staff is recommending today? Thank you, Mr. Kress.
Thank you, Chair. No, we are not changing our recommendation that this still should be voted on, as the interim ordinance is still in effect until it is lifted by the full council. So we would recommend that you support and adopt staff findings.
Okay, wonderful. So then I will open the public hearing for this item. Would anyone like to speak?
Madam Chair, members of the council, my name is Will Spencer. I work at Ray Camp Larson Architects, the designer of this project, and we are the applicants. The homeowner came to us in the fall of 2013 with this property and began in earnest a design for a new house on this existing lot. You have probably also seen at the last public hearing images of the current house. The homeowner's father kind of showed these, that the conditions of the existing house are pretty bad. We've done a lot of due diligence in working with zoning and planning to for the new design to conform to all existing regulations. And then in addition to that, aside from the construction management plan that was done by CPAD, we kind of started our own, drafted our own, and been doing that in addition. So we've been working with zoning and continue to work with Public Works and the soil and structural engineer in order to make this house a great neighborhood house for a great client who wants to live in the neighborhood. So be happy to answer any question you guys have, but that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Would anyone else, are there any questions? Would anyone else like to speak? Anyone else for the hearing? Seeing none, I will close that public hearing. So I will move approval of the waiver and to adopt staff findings and see if there's any discussion on that motion. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. That motion carries. And with that, our meeting is adjourned today. Thank you.